Hello, welcome back to I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And we are going to be starting January, at least in part with our books here, with the first series in the American Girl collections that I'm going to be covering this year. So we're going to be starting off with Kea. So her stories take place in 1764. She is part of the what is now called the Nez Perce tribe, but their traditional name is the Nimiipuu. So these books were started by Pleasant Company. They took 6 years to develop because they were trying to do this correctly. Now the author is, it's not showing me, it's Janet Shaw, if I remember correctly. She's the woman who wrote, Kirsten's books. However, she did meet frequently with a advisory board so she could get this as right as possible while again still making it accessible to young girls. So we don't actually know Kea's age. I am assuming just because of the formula and the ages, she's between the ages of 9 and 10. So the advisory board, which I will read off here just so we know who they are, that did start off with Pleasant Company, though she did not come out until after the sale to Mattel. But the first person was Lillian A. Ackerman. She was at the time she was an associate professor, adjunct, and Department of Anthropology in Washington State University. She studied and spent a lot of time on the reservations with this tribe, so she has a good idea who they are. You also had Vivian Adams. She's of the Yakama tribal member, former curator of the Native Heritage and High Desert Museum. You had Rodney Cawston of the Colville Confederated Tribes. Now, apparently, I think where I read something, it was the author based his ability to whistle to bring his horse to him. That's where he gets the idea that Kea can do that with hers, as well as apparently her hair color. She got from him. You also had Constance G Evans, who was a retired IHS family nurse practitioner and former Nez Perce language assistant instructor of Lewis and Clark State College. So she knows the language, and obviously she's a medical person, but main part is she focuses on the language, and I believe she's probably part of the tribe. Then you had Diane Mallickan. She's a park ranger, cultural interpreter, and of the Nez Perce National Historical Park. You had Anne McCormack, who is a cultural arts curator of the Nez Perce tribe. You had Fraqnces Paisano, a Nez Perce tribal elder and retired educator, and Rosa Yearout, a Nez Perce tribal elder, and through Sweetwater Appaloosa Ranch. So she knew the horses. And I believe it was either Francis or Rosa who recommended that these books take place pre-colonial contact. So why they make specifically that their tribes have not met with the white men, so to speak. They had traded with people who interacted with them, but they had yet to interact with them yet. So that was the decision to one of the advisory members requested the time period, not necessarily to bypass the issues of colonialism, but more to show the culture at its height. So this is what the culture, at least to their interpretation, looked like prior to the nightmare that became the white settlers and the U.S. government, and chasing them off and getting them sick with all their diseases and killing them off and then forcing them on reservations and then stealing their children and going off to the boarding schools, stripping them completely of their language and their culture and all sorts of things. It was not a fun time, nonetheless. So that's what we're looking at in these 6 books. So our main character is Kea. That is the short name. The first book is called Meet Kea. Again, it starts in 1764. We do not know her birthday. It is not listed. It is not even mentioned, so I'm guessing it's not a thing. They do not celebrate birthdays, but, you know, kind of makes sense. It's not a thing. So, let's see. So we're first going to start off with, as all the books start, they have the family and friends. And they do have pronunciations in the back of these books, which is probably the reason they used the language person. So they used someone to help with the pronunciations. I do not know why Kea is the only one who has a native name, because the rest of her family, the children, have translations. So her in this book, you have her father, who was called Tota. That's her father. He's an expert horseman and a wise village leader. Her mother was Itza. She's a good provider for her family and her village. You have Kea, an adventurous girl with a generous spirit. You have Brown Deer, Kea's sister who was old enough to court. You have Wing Feather and Sparrow, Kea's mischievous twin brothers. You have, let me see, these are her father's parents. Kalutsa, which is her grandfather from her father's side, and let's see, Aliyah, her grandmother from her father's side. And then you have Speaking Rain, which is a blind girl who lives with Kea's family and is a sister to her. Her horse, which is Steps High. Raven, a boy who loves to race horses. And Foxtail, a bothersome boy who can be rude. So in this story, Kea and her family are coming to one of the rivers. They're meeting up with her father's parents and a bunch of other people for salmon fishing. So in this, part of what happens is her mother tells her to watch her brothers, but she's goaded by Raven and, what is his name here again? Mostly it's Foxtail, because she boasts about how fast her horse was. And her horse ends up bucking her. Then she realizes she doesn't know where her brothers are. She finds Speaking Rain. Her brothers, again, they're twins. My guessing is they're probably around 3 or 4, would be my guessing of the age, just by their behavior. They run off. The girls find him, but one of her aunts realizes that she disobeyed, and she nearly lost her brothers who could have been hurt. So they bring in the Whippoorwoman, and all the children are smacked on the back of their legs. And she earns the nickname of Magpie because she wasn't paying attention, and she went off essentially after something shiny rather than doing her responsibility. And so she spends a lot of the book trying to get rid of that nickname and feeling ashamed of it and hating being called it. And then one day she's out picking berries with Speaking Rain, and her blind sister isn't fully paying attention and falls into the river by stepping on a loose bank. And Kea has to get on her horse and ride ahead of her and go into the river to catch her as she's coming down the river. And she is able to do that, and her father is able to bring her in. And it shows that her horse is fast when need be. So, but that is kind of and at the end of this story, I believe her family returns. Where are they returning to? Yes. Let us see. Where is she going? Yes, they're going higher into the mountains. Where's that? Yeah, that's Rescue from the River. Yes, they're going higher into the mountains back to her mother's family. So that is kind of what they were doing. This is getting close to winter. So that's when this is. So that's the essential part of this book. And again, as they always have a looking into the past in the back of every single one of these books. So it talks a bit about the generations and the family and the different stories and things and their teepees and their dependence on the salmon, and kind of this is their homeland. So this is really, it's in parts of Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. So that, and this, the book entirely, the story is about 58, 59 pages. So that's the end of this one. So this is the first book. So this is where we learn about her family. The other thing they talk about is her sister, who is about age to court. They do these dances. Now the families, again, do make the decision, but they pay attention to these court dances where the girls are dancing in an inner circle, the boys are around, and the boys will put a stick on the girl's shoulder, and if she knocks it off, she is not interested. If she keeps it there and she lets him in, they dance together. And her sister does this with a boy by the name of the courtship dance, Cut Creek or Cut Cheek. So he becomes kind of important because they do start their courtship throughout the series. So that is book 1. Book 2 is down here. I'll bring up book 2. So this is Kaya's escape. So in this story, again, this is a theme throughout most of the girl stories. They're coming of age tales. Okay. So in this story, Kaya's tribe, I wouldn't say they're attacked, but people from another tribe come to steal their horses, and they end up, because Kaya wants to rescue her horse, they end up kidnapping Kaya and, besides her horse, Steps High and Speaking Rain. And they are taken to where these people are camped. And Kaya is set to work by this woman she calls Otter Woman. And she's tied to this woman at night, so she doesn't leave. Speaking Rain is put in charge of somebody's baby, and while Kaya is working on dealing with buffalo hides, which makes me think that this troop is near the plains at the time. Though, and I do not know what culture this is. I know with the Nez Perce, from what I've read, what would happen when they would hunt the buffalo is they would take a group of people and be gone for a couple of years. And that is mentioned actually at the last story. So they're essentially kidnapped and to an extent enslaved. Now, in this story, you have her regular family, but we take away, obviously, the 2 boys. We end up with her grandmother. This is her grandmother on her mother's side. So that's, I believe it's Kutsa. I could be wrong. Yeah, it's Kutsa. And then you have Two Hawks. So he's a boy that who'd also been kidnapped from the Salish tribe. And they communicate with sign language. And what they do is correct, from what I've seen and watched specifically of the Nez Perce talking about how they would communicate with people. They would use sign language. The first thing they ask is, what tribe are you from? And that's what they do, to see if this is a tribe that they are friendly with. And the Salish were a tribe that the Nez Perce traded with. What ends up happening is, during a storm Speaking Rain convinces her to leave, because they're going to be, the group is going to be moving on, and they don't want to get further from their own people. So she's able to, Speaking Rain isn't tied up because she's blind, is able to get the knife from the Otter Woman, so Kaya can escape with, what is his name again? Two Hawks. And they're able to, the story is pretty much after that is them trying to escape and arguing with each other. Him being a boy, not wanting to listen to her. They're roughly around the same age. And eventually Kaya's father, her father being able to find them. But again, Speaking Rain is still missing. So that is really the course of this story. But she feels guilty because she's lost her sister. She's lost her horse because she was impatient. So, and then the look into the past talks about them playing and different things going on, the relationship with their horses and their elders, and some of their tales involving coyote, which again is very, very common with native tribes as the trickster. It does talk a little bit about the boarding schools and how they are today. So, but that is the crux of this story. It's probably about the same length, and yeah, it's about 62 pages. So a little bit longer, but not by much. And there's always pictures in these. So the next book is Kea's Hero, A Story of Giving. So in this tale, we have few things. We still have her parents and Kea and her siblings. You still have two hawks. We are fully introduced into a woman called Swan Circling, who is briefly mentioned in the previous book. But you also meet her Kea's mother's father, who is, how do they pronounce their title here? Pilaka. I'm probably mispronouncing this. So, in this story, Kea forms a relationship and a friendship with Swan Circling. This is a warrior woman. She very much admires her. And they deal with a baby dies in this because the healing woman just can't help her. So you get a lot of death. And then Swan Circling also, she goes to rescue the baby because the horses run off. But I think the baby still dies, and then Swan Circling also dies. But and this is mentioned in some of the research that I have done, that their names change over time as they get older, which kind of makes sense. And she's gifted Swan Circling's name, and she's gifted a few of her things because apparently their spirit can't rest until their body is buried, and all their possessions are given away. So, and that's kind of what happens. So this is basically Kea is learning from this woman, and she very much admires her, and she wants to be brave and take care of her people. So this is part of her. She wants to put her people first. And she's, again, still sick of being called Magpie. So she's trying to grow up, essentially. And so that is kind of her journey. It's also mentioned both here and a couple of the other books that she's preparing to go on her spirit journey, where she'll go off into the forest and for a matter of days to meet her spirit animal. And she's, in many ways, she's preparing for that. So that's the course of this story. And it is, how long is this one? It's about 64 pages. And then the peek into the past with this one does a lot of looking at their clothing, how they survived winter, hold that up, and their weaving and what they would have worn, and their arrows. So this is kind of more of a contemporary girl dressed up. It shows their longhouses because they stayed in teepees when they were traveling, but during the winter they stayed in these big longhouses with a bunch of extended family. So they built this was their where they stayed permanently. So, and where they did a lot of working and mending and things like that. So that's book 3. Then we move on to Kea and the Lone Dog. So this is book 4. In this story, the family members are, again, you have her parents, herself, her siblings, her mother's parents. You still have two hawks, and then you have Lone Dog, which may or may not be a wolf or a wolf dog hybrid in here. And in this one, she starts feeding this dog. They're doing a lot of gathering. It's spring, again, and she feeds this animal, and then it has pups, and She helps take care of the pups. The dogs in her tribe don't particularly like this lone dog. And she helps take care of this. And eventually she brings, before they travel, she's going to bring the pups with her. So you have pictures of her with puppies. And puppies are cute, even if they're wolf puppies. And so she decides to bring the puppies with her. They're getting old enough. And eventually she protects them from a bear, but eventually Lone Dog decides to leave. And she can't, because Lone Dog does not belong with them. So she ends up, I think one of the puppies stays with her. So she keeps, one of the puppies ends up staying with her. So that becomes her dog. So, and I'm trying to think. Yeah. Tatalo is the name of the dog. So, but that is kind of the course of that story. It's about her learning responsibility. And then the backstory talks about the babies on the backboards. Very, very common because they're being carried around, about the teepees. Their horse riding. You see a lot of pictures of the families. These people were very much horse people. So, and then dogs. So that's the course of this story. And it's about 70 pages long. So a little bit longer. But instead, it's very much her learning her responsibilities. And you do see a lot of their culture about the food they're gathering, what they're doing. Again, this is starting early spring. This is a hunter-gatherer tribe. So that's the course of this one. Now we're moving on to book 5, which is Kea Shows the Way, a sister story. So this is when she gets her sister back. So in this book, again, you have her basic family. Speaking Rain is back. You have her mother's parents. You have White Braids, who's a woman from the Salish tribe that saves Speaking Rain's life. So in this one, they end up going to the sound of the fall. So they end up going to these waterfalls. They're meeting up with other people. They're trading. Again, it's their life surrounds the salmon. So they do eventually get 2 hawks back to his uncle, and they promise to go looking for her sister. And eventually they do, in fact, find, well, she still has her pup, and finding her, and they do a lot of talking with their families. She's going across the river with her dog to see if she can find her sister. Her sister tells her what happened, how she was left behind. She nearly starved to death. This woman found her, nursed her back to health, and she's been helping take care of this old woman since then. And eventually it is decided, so here she is with the older woman. Kea wants her sister back, but isn't quite sure what to do. They decide basically that Speaking Rain is going to stay with Kea's family through the winter, and then in spring she's going to go back to this woman who she promised to help. She made an oath to help this woman. So that is, again, it's part of Kea's learning to grow up. You also have, you're seeing some of the courting situations with brown deer, how his family is, Cut Cheek has to prove to Kea's family that he can take care of her sister Brown Deer. So that's a lot of, and Kea basically has to learn compromise, and she has to learn that her sister is growing up. So, and I'm trying to see, did she get her horse back in this one? No. So, and then again, they have the peak and fast. All right, sorry about that. It's now 5:16 in the evening. I need to get dinner started soon. My husband had left for yoga, and then I realized I wasn't recording. So we're going to get back to what we were doing. So this is book 4. So this is Kea and the Lone Dog. This story tells of how Kea befriends most possibly a wolf dog, we're not sure, by the name of Lone Dog, who ends up having puppies, and she ends up rescuing one of the puppies. And so she starts dealing with the starving dog, then she helps with the puppies. I don't know if there's more warnings. Not even more about these. Let's see. They're out on the prairie and they're digging in the fields. They're digging for a thing called cows, which was very good in the marketplace for traders. And I do not know what that is. That's not a major food of theirs, I do not believe. So she is looking at different things and trading. They do talk a little bit about different family. Two Hawks, this is where they're meeting up and trading. So Two Hawks finds his family. He's so that's kind of and he's able to go off with his uncle, and they will promise to see if they can find her sister. And she's still dealing with the puppies. Again, you see her with the puppies here, or at least one of the puppies. And the danger for the pups, where she rescues them from let's see, she rescues them from a bear. And then eventually she takes the pups, but Lone Dog doesn't really want to stay with her. So, and she's of course also dealing with her brothers and telling them to learn to behave. So yeah, Lone Dog is, the pups are wrestling. Been a little bit, what is going on? They're talking about they do talk about the kamas. So it's the digging for roots is coming. So the kamas plant is very important to these people. It is mentioned, I will mention in another video where I review them actually talking about this plant. But nonetheless, I believe she has to let Lone Dog go because she doesn't want to stay. She has to rescue let's see. Yeah, the badger had taken over the den. Let's see. She keeps one of the puppies. I don't know what happens to the other one. No, it must go off with one of the mother. I don't see what happened to the other puppy. So that's how she gets hold of her puppy, because the puppy stays with her. So that's really the course of this. So they do a lot of training. They talk about it's almost time to go digging for the roots. They do bring up the comas plant, which again I will cover at a later video. But that is Kea and the Lone Dog. The next one is book 5, which is Kea Shows the Way. This is when she gets her sister back. So they go back into trading. They go to this area with these huge waterfalls and the lake. She goes across the lake and finds that her sister she's with the Salish people. She'd been found by an older woman who nursed her back to health. Her sister has sworn to stay with her. Eventually they do reach a compromise where her sister will stay with them through the fall and winter. I believe that's the compromise, and then she goes back. Let me see. Yeah, the new path. So let's see. Yes, and strangely enough, this is, I believe, I believe this is Kea. Kea is the one who makes this decision. So she's the one. It's like, why don't her sister spends part of the year with them and part of the year with White Braids, who's the woman who rescued her. So yeah, she chooses, and part of the year with us. That's why she can help White Braids, but she wouldn't have to give up her family completely. And her sister's like, that's a new path. So, and they're going to ask the council, if that's what they think, including her mother. So what is the decision? Let's see. They talk about them. All right, I have to skim through this to get the answer here. So let's see. What on earth is the decision? Is it fall or spring? Nonetheless, she's going to spend, so they could go with us to the Salmon River County for the winter. And then when it's digging time, she can take them back to the prairie, so the Palos Prairie, and she can meet White Braids to help work for the digging season. And then Tuhawk says some of their people can meet you at the Palos Prairie, then bring her here to the Big River again. So basically she's going to split time. And this was Kaya's idea. So this is why it's called Kaya Shows the Way. So she's trying to do what's best. She's growing up. So this is another very good one. Also, you have the cute little puppy. You can't dismiss puppies. So, and then they do, let me see what they talk about in the past. They talk about the salmon. They talk about catching the salmon. It's Kalu Falls, which I have no idea where that is. I'm guessing it's in Oregon. So, and they talk about the tents, and they talk about, they would summer at Kalu Falls. It was a very festive time, so they did a lot of stuff. And because they were gathering, again, this was a time for them to gather the salmon. Because the salmon were extremely important to them. So that is the end of this book. So you're seeing Kaya slowly grow up. She's finding ways to compromise and to help other people rather than being selfish. And then we're moving on to the last book. So this is Changes for Kaya, and similar to Meet Kaya, the Changes for is going to be the titles of the first and last book of pretty much all the series. I do not have them all yet, so I'm not 100% positive. So in this book, you have Smoke on the Wind, The Rogue Stallions Herd, Trapped by Fire, and Gifts. So those are the title of the stories. So in this one, you still have her family, which is her parents, her sister, herself. For some reason, even though he's mentioned quite a lot, her sister's future husband is not ever pictured here. Her horse is mentioned, and then you get Raven and Foxtail, who are back. They were in the original story, as well as Speaking Rain, which is her sister. So they're off picking berries. I don't think, Kaya's not, they're playing with their dolls because Kaya's not allowed to really help right now because because she's still mourning her namesake, they think her emotions will damage the plants, essentially. And she's just kind of enjoying being a child and playing with her sister again. But her sister's like, I smell grass fire. And she's like, you have a very good nose. Which, again, is almost, now not a blind person, but you would think they're more aware of their other senses when they don't have sight. Not that they have better senses in those places than the rest of us. They're just more aware of them because they cannot see. Similar to if you close your eyes to listen, you're able to focus more on that sense. Because as humans, we are in fact sight animals. So our primary sense is our sight. So this is also where, so she's off with the family and she's still being called Magpie. And this is when they meet up with the group that had been off hunting buffalo for the last year. So, and she hears about a wild herd and she wants to go and look at that. So, But she tells her, it's like, no, I've got to focus on what I'm doing, and then I'll talk to my father. I'm not going to go running off alone. So she goes with her father. She tells her father, he's like, okay, we'll go have a look. Let's take Raven with us, and we'll go see if we can find your horse. And they do, in fact, find Steps High. Steps High has a fall, but there's a stallion part of the herd who's trying to keep Steps High with him. So her father has to distract the horse. So she's able to get her horse, but then they are, and then you see her, she's able to whistle for her horse, and you see her fall. But then they are trapped by the fire. They're heading out, and her father goes back because he's sensing something, and he comes running back. It's like, we need to get going. There's a grass fire. And then they get trapped. Her horse runs back to get her fall, who's fallen behind. She calls for her horse again. She's able to get on her horse's neck and get through the fire. She hears a whistling. She thinks it's her father. She does eventually find her father. He's like, nah, I didn't whistle for you. Once they get to a safe place. And they think it's the stick people who are part of their culture. And then they leave a bunch of gifts for this people, and then they talk about the wedding. So you also see Kea here. She's basically at this point, she almost feels very much grown up. So, and then they talk about her sister getting married, and all sorts of things. And they go and talking through that. So that is the end. And then she's ready to go on her spirit walk. So there she is with her horse's fall, and her dog. So I do believe, she's whether she's going with her family or she's ready. Let's see. I think that's end. Yeah, no, they're just going out to meet the family, so she's not going on her, she's almost ready to go on her spirit walk, where I don't know if she would be considered an adult there. I'm not that familiar. But that is the end of the series. It's very interesting. I'm obviously not Native, but from what I've been able to read, the natives of the Pacific tribe are in favor of this book series. The author, though white, did try to do her best within the confines, of course, trying to write a book series that appeals to modern 9 to 10-year-olds. So there are obviously she's saying taking certain liberties with certain things, but from what I can tell, she represents the culture very well. She represents the day-to-day life of these people while also giving a story to this young girl. Because this is our main character. This is the girl that the readers are supposed to relate to. And they have to have a story. And so, as usual with all these stories, it is in fact a coming-of-age tale. So they have to learn something. So I enjoyed them. I think they're really great books. They're a good look into, from what I can tell, the hunter-gatherer lifestyle of these families, how close their families are, and how connected to the land that they are. The land is everything to them. It gives them everything, and they respect it. They respect the salmon. They respect the horses. They respect the buffalo and all the plants around them. They are connected to the land, and they move from place to place for different reasons and to gather different foods. This was their way of life. Unfortunately, white settlers came in, the U.S. government came in and destroyed everything because greedy, and gold, and Christian senses of these people are evil and we must get rid of the Indian, not the man, and we're going to split up these families and send them off to boarding schools and make them lose their family and their culture and everything. So, but we will talk about that later. This is before that. If I remember reading some of this, the Lewis and Clark expedition would not meet up with these tribes until Kea would have been about 50. So she might not have seen everything that happened afterwards. But this is them at their height. And that's the reason I think one of the advisors said, let's put this before. Let's show the culture how it's supposed to be seen, how it was, what our people were, and the culture that is what they are now. So I will be covering the bits and pieces, try to find over some cooking and different videos and things of the Nez Perce or the Nimiipuu. I'm probably pronouncing that funny. It sounds weird to me, but I'm a little white girl. So I thoroughly admit that. This is my opinion. But again, they had a decent advisory board. The author, Janet Shaw, I think did her best to respect the culture as much as possible and take into account what the advisory board asked. From what I was able to read on the creation, this did take 6 years. So she took her time and they reviewed it and looked at it and they made suggestions. So, and again, from what I can tell, the native people of this tribe enjoy these books and they think they did a good job. So, but that's what I was able to find. Again, I am not a native person, so you can take my opinion with a grain of salt. To me, this is a good series to look at when you're looking at maybe not the exact cultural details of this culture, though you can dive deeper into it, but how natives are connected to the land and how they are part of it. You can't take these people away from the land. And that is the way most of our humans started. We were connected to the land. We moved, before we started farming, we moved from place to place to where the different food sources and water sources were. We are a pack species. We belong in groups. And this story very much represents that. It shows how close the families are and how they come together at different times, how they celebrate, and what family and the land mean to them, and how connected they are to all of them. And how, no, they didn't constantly live in teepees. They did live in the longhouses in winter, and how they were part of each other. So to me, this is a great series to show that. And it demonstrates how intelligent these people were and still are. They are still trying to protect their culture and make sure it doesn't disappear. So if you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. I will be covering Kea and as much accuracy as I can with various different craft and cookbooks and things that I can. She does have some short stories. I think she has a mystery or two. I will be covering those. And the next month in February, we will go back east to the American Revolution with Felicity Merriman and Colonial Williamsburg. So I will see you next time. Thank you.